we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello, and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I am so excited to have a conversation today with Kelly Schuknecht. I think you are going to be excited about this conversation too. Kelly, let's get right into it. Why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
I would love to, Kim. So I am Kelly Schuknecht, the founder and CEO of 2 Mile High Marketing. I actually call myself the Chief Elevation Officer because my company is all about elevating thought leaders and just on brand, right? We help business owners who want to develop their thought leadership platform through speaking, podcasting, LinkedIn content, and ghostwriting as well. Yeah, that is what we do in a nutshell.
Love that. And how many people do you have in your company?
Oh, good question. As of right now, we are, I want to say 4 full-time people and maybe 5 or 6 part-time people.
Yep. Okay, good. Which is nice, right? Because you can expand and contract as you need relative to the work.
Yeah. I hired a bunch at once, and then we kind of were like, okay, we have to figure out this is new to me as far as being an owner of an agency and figuring out these staffing things. But yeah, we're figuring it out as we go.
Yep, I love that. All right, your random question. If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would you become an expert in?
Can I say languages?
Absolutely.
Another spin on that question, whenever I'm asked if I could have any superpower, what would it be? To me, it would be being able to speak any language. So if I could become an expert at anything, it would be in all languages. I just think I would love to just go anywhere and be able to speak to anyone in their language. I know that with the new AirPods, we're getting to the point where that's almost going to be possible. We can't necessarily speak the language, but we'll be able to understand it.
Right.
It'll be translated for us, which is amazing to think about. But yes, languages and just being able to speak with anyone, that's my dream.
I love that actually. I feel like I stink at learning languages. I took 3 years of French in high school. I have taken Hebrew. I studied Italian, and I am lucky to speak English. I love that. And I live in California, so speaking Spanish would be so useful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I studied Spanish and I speak not fluently, but I speak Spanish enough to get
Okay.
by. So a couple weeks ago, I was in the airport and there was a woman in the airport who went up to a bar in the airport and she was trying to talk to them and nobody could speak to her. She was speaking Spanish. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll ask her. It was like, I hate putting myself in those situations, but I was like, she needs help. Her phone didn't work. Her phone from whatever
Mm.
country she had come from wasn't working in the United States, and she couldn't get a hold of her daughter who was in the airport to pick her up.
Oh,
So anyways, I helped her, but I was so grateful that I was able to
yeah.
communicate with her because same in Colorado, same thing. There's a lot of Spanish speaking people. So it's a handy skill to have.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Good for you. I think that all these ads for, oh, just 10 minutes a day and you will be fluent. Yeah, not so much. At
Oh,
least
yeah.
not for me. Here's the other thing, and you tell me if you think this is true or not, or if you've ever thought about this. And this is just my own anecdotal research. I think that people who are good at their musical tend to be better at languages than like me. I am much more like on the creative side of things. I have no ear for music, although I appreciate it. And I don't know, I just think there's a correlation between that and that kind of brain.
Maybe I've heard that. I've heard that same thing about math, that people who
Yeah.
are good at math are good at music. And I would say my dad's an accountant and he was a guitar player. He played guitar, I think taught himself and was great at that. I don't know for myself. I dabbled in music, right? I didn't do a whole lot, so I don't
Hmm.
know. But I will say I taught myself guitar. Sorry, I was still thinking of the math thing, so I'm not answering your actual question,
Yeah.
but I was good at math as well, having a dad who was an accountant. And I taught myself to play guitar and I can hear the strumming patterns. Like I
Mm.
never took any lessons, but I can just hear it and I know how to do it. So I
Right.
think that maybe comes from that side of my brain. As far as languages though, I don't know, I wish that I were better at, like I studied it. I can speak it enough to get by, but I feel like an idiot whenever I'm speaking in Spanish because
Mm.
like the words that don't come to me, I'm like, I can't. That's so frustrating. Maybe I need to
Yeah.
study music some more and then the language will come to
See,
me.
there you go. I
Yeah.
like it. All right, let's get into the leadership conversation because that's another interesting conversation. So, what's one piece of conventional business advice or wisdom that you followed early on that you really came to find out was not for you?
Ooh. Conventional, but in my business now or in my career in
No,
general?
I think in your career in general, another way to think about the question is either what did you grow up thinking success was going to look like because it was modeled for you, or when you started out working, there are very oftentimes very linear way, like what you think your career path should look like. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah. I will say, I don't think I really had any idea what my career path was going to be. I had no ambition to have any career. Like I just did it. I don't know. I watch my kids now. They're at this late high school, early college years, and I feel like two of them are very focused, like very driven to where they're going to go. And that might change, right? But one of them reminds me a lot of me where it's like, who knows? Who knows what he's going to study? Who knows what he's going to do? I don't know. And that was how I was, right? And to be 100% honest with you, thought I was just going to get married and have kids. Like that was just the only thing I thought I was going to do. And I found myself in the position, however, of we couldn't afford for me to just have kids and stay home. So I had to work and I did and found out that I actually was just good at working. Like I was good at leadership. I was good in the workplace. I studied Spanish. That was actually my degree in college
Oh,
and
wow.
has absolutely nothing to do with the career path I ended up taking. And I feel like every step of my career has been accidental is probably not the right word, but like one thing led to another, and I ended up down this path that I wasn't planning on. Going back to having kids, I had my kids and I just wanted to work from home. I knew I had to work, but I was like, I want to be home with my kids. So I found a job, this was 18 years ago, where I could work from home, and that was not common back then. And then found out that I was really good at the business administration side of things and leadership. And I ended up becoming the vice president of the company I was working for, which never would have happened if I hadn't leaned in my career. It was like I had to figure out a way to make career and family work. And
Mhm.
so I did. And then I ended up going down this path of having this great career. And all of that to say, I think that my answer to your question for me was like the conventional wisdom is like, you need to know what you're good at. You need to pick a career path. We're telling our kids that right now, too. And I know that I had no idea, and it developed on its own over time because of the things that I was naturally good at, and then the skills and experience that I gained over those years.
Yeah. It's interesting because I also have three kids, and my son is in flight school right now to become a commercial pilot. And honestly, he's in his early 30s, right? So I think it's really interesting. And we did a exercise not too long ago around the table. What are you thankful for? And he said something that I think I will never forget in my life, which is that before he did that, he was a bartender. And he might have been one of the most well-educated bartenders out there. But what is really interesting is he said, I feel so thankful for the support of my family because I never felt pressured. I never felt less than. I never felt like I was a disappointment because of what I chose. And it gave me the space to be able to really find what I am passionate about.
Yeah.
And once he decided, like, he's on the road, right? Or I don't know, in the air, probably not on the road, in the air. Let's hope he's not in the road. I think that is a really interesting thing. The second thing I would say, and I don't know if you buy into this or not, but I do think I can make a connection, at least in my own mind, between you studying Spanish and what you currently do. And here's where I see the connection. Because on the one hand, sure, you're not creating stories in Spanish, so there's not a like one-to-one connection. But I do think translating, because translating is not a word for word thing. It is really an art along with the science of what were the words, but it is storytelling. What is
Mhm.
the essence? And then how do you translate that either from Spanish to English to Spanish? And the ghostwriting and what you do in marketing, you are essentially a storyteller.
Yeah. 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 I remember being in college and being like, I really didn't like the business college people. I wasn't a frat guy, kind your frat boy kind of person. That's what I remember. Is that was my impression of the guys. I remember the guys that went to business college, the way that they were was just like I was so not like that. I was going to study Spanish and I was going to travel to Spanish speaking countries and work with Spanish speaking people. That's what I wanted. Now, on this side of it, I realize that there's so much to marketing that's more of this creative side that I would have had to go to the business school, but there was this creative side that I didn't know I was good. Wouldn't have known it if I hadn't just fallen down this path and been led by my own kind of drive and what I was good at. But you're right, in the ghostwriting, and in the positioning and marketing, it's about telling your story. So I think for me, a lot of it is like understanding different people. I call it within my company, I call it like the vibe of the client. Like I need to know if I'm working on getting you on a podcast, for example, like I need to know and understand you and how you like what type of host you would fit with, right? I'm not going to
Right.
pair any client with just any podcast. I want to make sure that I'm pairing them with ones that are going to be good conversations, that
Right.
are going to be fun for them, rewarding for both sides. And those are things that I think come from just like the understanding of people, which, like you said, when it comes to language, there's more to it's not a word for word when you're translating. There's different contexts that you're putting together
Right.
to be able to understand the language.
Yeah. So interesting. All right. As a successful now that you have your own agency, and what is one thing that people just assume you have got nailed that underneath it all, you still wrestle with?
Okay, so I have a massive fear of public speaking.
Oh.
And when I started this company, part of what we do is we help business owners get speaking engagements. The reason that I went down that path with my company is that's what I had done for my boss in the past. And so
Mm,
it was something I wanted to do for other people. I learned how to do it. That's the part of the experience that I had, and I wanted to bring that to other people. But I was like, I have to practice what I preach, right? If I want to grow my company and I'm helping other people do that through speaking, I have to do it. So I knew that was one of the things I had to start doing was getting out there and speaking. And if you watch one of the videos of me on stage, you will not believe me that I am horribly afraid of doing it. Like literally the moment before I could just crawl in a hole. Like it is not something I'm comfortable with, but people do not believe it because they're like, this is what you do. This is the presence you have online. You do great when you're on stage. So people don't believe me, but it's true.
yeah. And I love that because, first of all, I think that is a big fear that people definitely have. And the fact
Yeah.
that you have been able to overcome it to the extent that somebody else wouldn't even be able to pick it up is pretty exceptional.
Yeah,
Right.
I know. I think if you know me well and you're sitting there, you're probably like, oh, she's talking a little fast, or there's certain things that I will do. There's certain tells, but for the most part, I think I fool people pretty well. It's good that I can do that. But it is a huge fear for a lot of people. And people are like, oh, I could never do that. And you can do it. And especially for me, I had a calling a few years ago where I just felt like I knew I needed to step up and put myself in the spotlight, to put myself on stages, to put myself on screens like this, because if I wasn't going to do that, I was going to hold myself back in my career. And I knew it was something I had to combat. So I started being more proactive about that. And so now, yeah, people don't believe me, but I'm like, it's from practice, it's from pushing myself, it's
Right.
not from natural ability.
One of the pieces of advice that I typically give people when I'm coaching, where it's relevant, is you've got to want whatever it is that you want to achieve more than you want to stay where you are.
Yeah.
And because there's discomfort, right, in doing it. And what I think is interesting about that is that I advocate for making a decision. So I think it's perfectly fine to say that feels like too scary to me and too big a hurdle to me. I actually would prefer to stay here, or maybe I'd like to take this step instead of this step, right? Like I could see myself being on a podcast where there's video because I'm talking to somebody, but I'm not really ready yet to be on stage
Yeah.
talking to a
Yep.
crowd, right?
Yep.
In person.
Yep.
I think where a lot of people get themselves in trouble is that they're like, okay, I know that's going to move my company forward, all the things everybody tells me I should be doing that. My least favorite word, should. Everybody says I should be doing that. Therefore, I think I should be doing that. I can't, I'm not willing to do that. So then I stay here and I feel shame. I feel embarrassment. I feel like I will never have the success that I want. So, what I'm advocating for is just like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And I would also posit that is not the only way to grow your company, right?
Sure.
So, do something else or do a baby step or do something else, but don't sit in the I should and feel shame around it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. There's other things that you can do. I think for me, I distinctly remember a few years ago I went to the Digital Summit. I was in Seattle. They have them all over, but I was in Seattle. And I was sitting there and I went to session after session, these people teaching on marketing. And I was sitting there going, after each one of them, I was like, I could have taught that. I could have taught that.
Yeah,
I could have, and at the end of the day, I was like, what am I doing? I am coming to this marketing conference, listening to people teach on things that I already know how to do, and I can teach other people how to do these things. And it was that moment that I was just like, I felt that call to do what I'm now
yes,
doing, even though I didn't know why. I was like, why should I get
right.
on stage? At the time, I was an employee in a company. It's like I didn't need to get on stage, but I just felt it. Like I was just like, I know
Yeah,
this is what I need to do, and this is the next stage of my career. And yes, I could have grown my company in other ways, but I feel like the personal brand I have grown very naturally has led me to this.
yeah,
And so it's really more for me like listening to yourself
that's right.
and knowing, yeah, it might be uncomfortable. And maybe writing a book is like this for a lot of people. I want to write a book. I'm thinking about it. People will sit on that for years. And it's just do it. You're being called to write it in some way for some reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is, do it. Get
Yeah,
over your fear of sitting there, your fear of putting your thoughts out there, or your excuses of I'm too busy, I just can't find the time, whatever. Make it happen. If it otherwise
right.
you will regret it. You'll look back and you'll say, I always wanted to write a book, but I didn't do it. Or I always
Yeah,
knew I was capable of more, but I didn't do it.
right. Yeah, listen, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm right there, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting for me is writing the book, because I have written a book. Writing a book felt natural to me. I think where I'm currently at is actually, instead of self-publishing, getting the book published and then like marketing the book and the thought leadership, that is requiring me to step into something that is much less comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a journey. And I, just as you said, I think for me, it's a combination of both things. I do feel called. I do feel called to do it because of what I'm talking about. And I think because here's the other thing. I 100% own the content. I'm not talking about publishing rights or anything like that, but I'm talking about just the thought leadership,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
it is 100% me and 100% like what I want to get out into the world. So I think that feels bigger than whatever trepidation I have about promoting myself.
Yeah.
And but it's also a process, right?
Yeah.
It's taking a while to feel comfortable and to step into it. But I love that. I love
Yeah.
what you have to say. And I would agree with you. I love the I'm called to do this. And I think the theme, it sounds like for you, is you don't always have a grand plan, but you're really good at listening to yourself, which just really goes to there's a lot of ways to be successful. Although I would say, and you probably are at this point too, I feel like I'm a little bit of a hybrid. I'm a planner, right? So if you just talk to my kids, they'll tell you how I drive them crazy. But I do check in with my gut as well, right?
Yeah.
But I do love a good plan. I do.
You need a combination of the two. I'm not, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Going back to the college conversation, my only plan was to go to college, right? There was no other plan other than that,
Okay. I love that.
but yeah, yeah. But yeah, I like what you said about the message is bigger than you. Because one of the things that people will say to me all the time is, it just feels so awkward putting myself out there all the time. And it does. I totally agree. And I think that I started my TikTok a few years ago where I started just doing videos every day. And that was part of my push to get over the fear of people
Right.
looking at me, of being on the spot and talking. And so really that was my biggest purpose, was just forcing myself to do something that was a little uncomfortable, but not being on a stage yet. I started doing that. And I get good feedback because people are getting so much value out of what I'm providing, right? So I'm teaching things that I learned about book marketing. That's what my channel was all about, was just marketing your book, writing, publishing, and people are getting great tidbits of information that they're able to apply. So it isn't about me. It's about what
Right.
I'm able to teach them. And yes, it feels uncomfortable. And yes, my teenage kids hate that their mom is on TikTok and all their friends see it. But the point isn't about me or how my teenage kids are. It's about the people that are learning from my 20 years of experience in the industry and what they can take away from that and apply to what they're doing. So I think that's what we have to get over in our heads. Is I just love that you said that. It's not about me, even though it's me putting myself out there. It's about what other people are getting from that.
Oh, love that. All right. If you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, what's one outdated belief you'd throw away immediately and what would you replace it with?
I don't know if the belief is this, but I will say from my experience is I thought that my bosses, so again, part of my story is 20 years I worked for a boss, right? Two different boss, but I was working for somebody else and I thought they had all the answers. I thought they had some special power and it was all about the power they had, and I didn't have that. I just didn't think
Mm,
I had that, right? And I think that what I have learned is that no leader has all the answers or knows everything or is perfectly designed to be doing what they're doing. They, for whatever reason, felt the calling to start their company or to be in the position they're in. And me as an employee, I had just as much value there to bring. And now I've taken a lot of that into now having my own company, running my own team of people. I am realizing that I was capable of more than I thought that I was because
mm,
I just thought that was somebody else's job to be that person. And so I think that, yeah, again, it's that calling to, if you're being called to be a leader, to start your own thing, there's a reason for that. And it's not just for someone else, and you have it within you as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think entrepreneurship, I think for a lot of people feels very risky, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
right? We know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It is. And especially once you have employees and they count on you to feed their own families and so forth, it's a different level of responsibility
Yeah.
on the one hand. On the other hand, it allows you to grow and move and become in a way that you probably would not have been had you continued to work for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. The last year of my life, so I started my business about a year ago, I have learned things about myself that I never knew. I have grown tremendously just in my skills and experience, but my confidence, just there's so much there's just been a huge evolution in my life over the last year. And it is risky being an entrepreneur, but also I wouldn't have taken the risk if I hadn't been laid off and been forced to be thinking about what to do next. And I look back and I wish that I would have left the job that I was in because I was miserable, but I didn't trust myself, I don't think, to make
Right.
that big shift. And now I look back and I'm like, why? What was I holding myself back for? I totally could
Right.
have done this. And I am doing it, right? But it's scary. And it is scary. And it can be super rewarding as well.
I always like to think about the last job that I got laid off of. That was the universe doing for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Yes, that's 100%. Agree with you. That is exactly my situation as well.
Yeah.
And I think that people who are laid off, I've seen people who will go in this downward spiral of poor me, I lost my job, whatever. And I think you have to have the perspective of what you and I just said is I knew in that moment this was done for me, not to me. And
Mhm.
I had that mindset going forward that this is going to be successful because there is no other option.
There you go.
And I think it didn't always feel like that, but
Right.
that was what I had to tell myself every single day was this is going to work because it has to. And has it worked out perfectly? No, there's definitely been things that I've been like, "Oh, I didn't know that was coming." But I know this was where it was supposed to be, and I think that anyone who is questioning whether or not to do it, it's time. Figure it out, make it happen. And maybe you'll
Right.
be fortunate enough to be laid off as well.
There you go. There's two things that occur to me there. One is my caveat to anybody starting their own business is that I find a lot of people do a lot of getting ready to get ready. So, my best advice for somebody is go sell a project. When you need to figure out your systems and so forth and your website and all those things, you'll do it, right? But until you sell projects, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
That I think is one of the most important things is figure that out. Like when if you get laid off and you've got some severance and you've got some money, go take a sales course, right? Because that's the most critical thing.
Yeah.
People don't think that's the most critical thing, but you can trust me, that is the most critical thing. And if you have been in direct service, you know already how to do your job. You probably have not had to sell it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, for me, the first few months, my branding was a mess, my website was a mess, my systems were a mess. Like I didn't have anything together, but I knew that I needed to bring in clients. So that was my top priority.
Yeah.
And I did. So I started bringing in clients and I just kept telling myself like, I'll fix that later. I'll figure that out. And
Right.
as I got more and more clients, then I was like, okay, now I can hire somebody to put this in place. So my brand as it is now, we designed in May. I started my business last year in October. So it was like how many months went by that my website, I did just have to tell people, just don't really look at that. Like you have a marketing company, but the cobbler's children have no shoes. And it eventually it gets there, right? But to me, it was like, okay, I've got a couple people a day maybe going to the website at that time. Nobody's going to the website. It doesn't matter. What
That's right.
matters is that I have revenue coming in and then I can fix that stuff later. But I think we get hung up on, I need to know exactly how everything is going to work. I need to have the website perfect. I need to have my whatever those things are that you think you need to have in place. Don't worry about that. Like you said, bring in the revenue first and you can figure that stuff out later.
Yeah, 100%. That is exactly the right thing. And I am so impressed that you got that, right? And you got there. And I think that's the thing. If we go back to the thing that you said about being afraid of public speaking and making yourself do it anyway, putting out TikTok videos, the other things is that yes, your company may be new. You are not new to what it is that you're doing.
Right.
You're bringing all of your wisdom into just doing it for yourself and for your clients versus the company that you work for as clients. So I think there's a lot of confidence in that and being able to then be like you said, this will be successful. And I think when you are committed, then you're willing to do some things that make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that is that I would rather be at this level of success than where I currently am.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get uncomfortable and I'm going to get there, which
Yeah.
is not also a straight path,
Yeah.
right? Because it never is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you figure it out as you go. You try something and you find out, oh, that didn't work, or I didn't like that, or whatever. But you just keep shifting and adjusting as you go forward. And one of the things that I do with my team all the time is we look back on and we reflect on what's working, what's not working, right? And then we look at those things and we make decisions about how we want to move forward. And that's just a regular exercise that we do. And it's really important if you want to not just be busy for the sake of being busy, but be busy in
Right.
the ways that are going to be beneficial to you and your company.
There you go. I 100% agree. So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's helped you grow your business?
Unconventional habit or mindset shift. I am like struggling over what would that be? I would say unconventional. I as I started the business, everything was about me as far as like I had to do everything, not about me, but everything was me, right? Like I had
Right.
to provide all the services and I think that as time went on, I started hiring people and having people in place to do the work. And I don't think it's unconventional, but I think it was not what I knew would happen. Is eventually I had to say, I can't do the client work anymore. I have to pull myself out of that because the more I get my head into client work, the less I can grow the business. And I think that as somebody who was an employee for 20 years, I saw myself as the doer, and it's different when you're running a company is your doing is different. It looks different. So I have been doing a lot of traveling and going to events and speaking and networking, and those things don't feel like work to me. It feels like like if I feel guilty to my team because I'm like, I'm running around, I'm having drinks with people on a Tuesday night. Like I'm all these things that I'm doing that don't feel like work, and not in the way that like, oh, it's I just love it so much, but it doesn't feel like work to me.
Right.
And yet those are the things I'm doing that are bringing in the clients. So that is my job. And I'm having to reassess in my brain, like, what is my job? Like, my job is not sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day or doing the work. My job is bringing in the clients so that my team has the work and I can pay them. So I don't know that it's unconventional, but it feels unconventional to me as a person
Mhm.
because it's so different from how I have worked for the last 20
Right.
years.
No, I absolutely think that mindset shift from doing to managing is huge. Because, here, Kelly, is one of the things, you tell me if this resonates with you. One of the main thing that's happened is that when we do, that is how we measure our success. And that's how we measure our accomplishments. I know I've certainly done this, right? You do something that's not on your list and you write it on the list just so that you get to check it off.
Yep.
And you're checking off the things off of your list. And then when the project is complete, right, and somebody gives you good feedback for it, you're like, got it, success, right?
Yeah.
When you own your own company, you don't necessarily get feedback like that. I'm one of those maybe rare people. You might be one of those people too, who I love the deal, right? I because for me, which I think this is, I guess is not, I love to sell. I think is what I felt like was rare. But the frame for me is then I get to change lives. Then I get to be of value, right? Then I get to do my thing, right? So that they can do their thing better, right?
Mhm.
So it's just so fun.
Yeah. And so I'll say in my 20 years of working for other people, I was never a salesperson.
Right.
So I think that's what really shifted for me was becoming the salesperson and realizing how much I do enjoy that as well. Because I get to have conversations with people all day. I get to go to these networking events and hang out with people who then later will message me and go, "Hey, this person I know could use your services. I'm going to connect you with that." Like that is just a thing that I've never done in my career, and so it's foreign to me, and yet I do really enjoy it. It just again doesn't feel like work. Like you said, like I don't get to check off the only check off I get to do is, "Oh, we got a new client. Check that off." But it's a different feeling.
Yeah. So you have to really change what success looks like in
Yep.
your own mind. What does accomplishment look like? And that can be something that you need to really, I think, consciously do. Otherwise, it all just becomes about money. And I think it's a tricky thing because, yes, you do it for money, right? And the thing is that both of us, in different ways, we are elevating people. Just like you said in the very beginning,
Yep.
we are helping people,
Yep.
right? And there's a butterfly effect from that.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so there's some bigger purpose here. And you should 100% get paid well to do that,
Yeah.
right? But if it's only for the money, then I think something gets lost
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And part of what we do is helping people get speaking engagements. And so this week alone, we had two of our clients that we booked speaking events for. And the team is so excited about it. And then I'm excited about it. And it's fun because I don't like, I've trained them to do the work of the outreach and the communicating with the clients, whatever, all that stuff that I was doing before. I've now empowered the team to do that. And they're celebrating those wins. And that to me is that's why we're here. It's like you said, yes, it's about the money because I need to take care of my family, but it's not about the money. It's about getting those wins for our clients and
That's
going
right.
like, yes, I got you on this stage and this is going to be a great opportunity. And like, we love that for our clients.
Right.
And that's what it's really about. The money, the more that you bring in as a business owner, the less you have to worry about those things and you
That's
can
right.
just celebrate your clients and their
There
wins.
you go. That's right. Exactly. And I think the last thing I'd love to just really touch on here is that being in direct service that you said, like, I've never had to sell before, which I think is a very common thing. A great reframe for that when you're first starting out and it feels, oh, icky, right? Oh, I have to sell and I have to tell somebody like they have to pay me, right? Not like some corporation, but they have to pay me money for my services can be a very hard thing for people. Here's the thing, we don't like to sell, but we love to buy things.
Yeah.
And so going through an exercise of not just what did I buy that I loved, but what about the person who sold it to me? Like what did they do to enhance that experience? And if you can give that experience to somebody else, if you can solve their problem with your services and not just solve their problem, but also give them an experience that they are looking for,
Yeah.
then everybody wins.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Last question. So it's a two-parter. So if you're going to, or when you feel imposter syndrome, that self doubt that creeps up, even though you have all this experience doing what you do, what's the circumstance where it's going to come up for you? And when it does, how do you ground yourself? How do you get yourself back to either neutral or positive?
That has shifted for me over the last year, but I will say I'm a part of this networking group where it's for marketing agencies. And the first time that I really experienced that imposter syndrome was going to one of the events and sitting at a table and comparing myself to the other people in the room, right? I don't really know what I'm doing. I've only been doing this for a few months, or I don't really have that many clients. They're a $5 million company. I'm whatever. And doing that, I remember that feeling back in February. So I was just, 3 or 4 months into my company and feeling like I didn't belong at the table. And now here I am a year later, and I am having these conversations with people, realizing that I'm having the same pain points, the same challenges, the same, and yes, I might be smaller than many of them, but I'm not different. They were where I am at some point. They were small at one time, and they
Right.
remember being at my stage, but also like the challenges are the same, or the experiences are the same. How do I ground myself? I think some of it for me has just been the experience and getting down the road and growing, but like the growth isn't what makes me feel like I belong at the table. It's the realizing that I do belong at the table. And I have to remind myself that sometimes in certain situations. I talked about my imposter syndrome and going out on stages and how uncomfortable that is or I guess I talked about my fear of going out on stages. That comes from the imposter syndrome, right? And the
Mm.
last couple of events I've done, I sat there and I looked at people and I went, okay, like they don't know what I know. They might be experienced in certain areas, but it's different. And so just almost like that self-talk I've had to do to remind myself that I belong at the table and that I know what I'm talking about and that I have something to share with people.
Yeah, I think that recognizing that it's there and just stopping. And one of the things I think is really important is to recognize where it shows up in your body. So even if your mind is hijacked, if you can get yourself to the point where you're like, oh, I can like physically feel that in my stomach or in my chest or in my throat or wherever it shows up for you, and make the connection that when I have that physical feeling, I need to stop and I need to ask myself with curiosity some questions about what's going on
Yeah. Yeah.
versus letting your thoughts brain just hijack yourself, where you might in looking back be able to pull it apart and have positive self-talk. I think it's really important if you can identify it in the moment. And I think the other really important piece is to be able to look at that story with curiosity and be like, sometimes I will literally, I do not say it out loud, but I will literally say to myself, oh, that's interesting, Kim. What's that about?
Yeah.
Because it's never about whatever that circumstance is.
Yeah.
It's always about one of those really core stories and core saboteurs. It's always that.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then what's really cool about that is, again, if you can look at it with curiosity and you can ask yourself the question, you're like, oh, yeah, no, Kim, you know what? That's actually an old story. We don't actually believe that story anymore.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for the input. Thank you for the reminder. And I'm actually going to choose a different story.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. So cool. Kelly, we did it. This has been such a great conversation. And I love your story. I can see it's not any wonder to me why, even in a year, you're as successful as you are. And I just know that you and your team are just really just going to take off from here and be even more successful.
From your lips to God's ears, Kim.
Yeah, there you go. Love that. All right. You have been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom, where cliches go to retire and fresh thinking we inspire. So, Kelly, again, thank you. Please download, review, subscribe, all the things that you need to do, and go out there and be a better human.
Where cliches come to retire. Drop